Smith to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum for this emergency conference call meeting. Dr. Townsend Smith.
Chair Davis.
Present.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Present.
Mr. Chastain.
Present.
Ms. White.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Kamnitz.
Present.
Mr. Buxton.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. Board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record, and if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. So, board members, you've seen the agenda for this October 16, 2018 emergency conference call meeting and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda, and if not, I request a motion for approval. Is there a motion?
Move approval. McDevitt.
Motion by Mr. McDevitt. Is there a second?
Chastain, second.
Second by Mr. Chastain. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll?
Chair Davis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Yes.
Mr. Chastain.
Yes.
Ms. White.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Buxton.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. So we have an approved agenda, so we'll move directly to our one item on the agenda, which is a request for the State Board of Education to waive its KNEC-002 policy requirements for the 2018 school year for districts impacted by Hurricane Florence. And on this item, I'll turn to our Deputy Superintendent for Early Learning, Dr. Pamela Shue. Dr. Shue?
Good morning. This is Pam Shue. I appreciate your time this morning. We have been trying to work on supporting the schools in these hard-hit areas that still aren't open due to the hurricane. And I'm just going to give some brief information about how we typically do our assessments. The K-3 Literacy Division there's a BOY, MOY, and EOY from the M class. And we set so there's windows where teachers go in at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, end of year to enter data. This year, due to the hurricane, many of these schools have not been able to actually do BOY at the beginning of the year assessment. So I talked with my consultants. Obviously there's a lot of pressure and stress, and these districts are feeling concerned about how they're going to be able to get the assessments done and what their responsibilities will be once schools start opening again. So what we're asking is that, and I spoke with Tom Tomberlin, I've talked to other leadership here before we moved to make this recommendation, but we would like to, for EVOS purposes also, first and second grade growth is measured from the BOY to EOY using TRC portion of the M class reading 3D, and kindergarten is measured from MOY to EOY. Kindergarten is always measured from middle of the year to end of year, but we're asking now that for first and second grade growth we do beginning of the year to end of year. So they're actually, whenever they start up school again, they will do a beginning of the year assessment and then just do the end of the year assessment, and we're asking that we don't ask them try to squeeze in an MOY, that we just have the BOY and EOY just for this academic year, and only to the schools that have been the hardest hit and actually feel that they aren't going to be able to do the three measures. So we're asking that we can just do 2 points of measurement this year for those schools. I also have, just real quick, I have Abby Whitford, who is one of my literacy consultants on the call as well, who is actually working in that area and working with those schools, who could provide any updates on what she's seeing as well, if there are questions around that. But this will give teachers the time to be able to get back in the classroom with their students, get them on a routine schedule, and then get enough instructional days in the classroom, do a beginning of the year assessment, and then just wait till the end of the year to be able to do their final assessment. So what we'd like to do is provide some sort of a waiver, I guess. Very simple. I don't want it to be bureaucratic or anything. I just want them to be able to submit something to me saying we're asking to do a BOY to EOY due to the hurricane. And I want it to be very simple and an easy process for these schools that still, for many of these districts who still have schools that are closed and aren't open yet.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hsu. Are there any clarifying questions from board members on this request?
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Mr. Hawkins. Go ahead.
I have one question, which is, as I understood the presentation, there would be discretion used as to who would be granted this accommodation or waiver as opposed to who might not, depending upon the severity of the interruption that they've sustained from the storm. I wasn't quite clear about how it was applied.
Yeah, so basically it'll be up and typically what we do is the BOY benchmark window opens on September 4th and ends on September 24th. And obviously we have a lot of schools who in the hurricane region who were unable to even do that at that time. So the regions that have been hit by the hurricane and do not think that they'd be able to do 3-point assessments, 3 times a year, and will only be able to do it 2 times a year, especially basically the ones who aren't open right now, would be able to, we'd offer that option for them to do. If they feel they can do it 3 times a year and they want to do it, but right now we would like to provide them the option to say, look, this is not something we want you to be overly concerned about and worried about. We want you to be worried about getting yourself back in the school and getting everybody, on getting instructional time and getting them back on their routines. And then when after so many instructional days and you feel like you're ready, you do BOY and then an EOY. So in those areas, the hardest you hit by the hurricane.
Thank you.
Dr. Hsu.
Yes.
This is Abby Whitford. Thank you certainly for listening, all of you. We did get the completion report this morning from Amplify on the schools, and I quickly jotted down those schools that were the hardest hit, and we're looking at, those folks that have done completion rates of as high as 43% completed with their students to as low as 1% in Robeson County. And so this would certainly be something that I think that schools would be welcomed to hearing. The kindergarten would be doing their MOY as their EBOS is measured from MOY to EOY. So that would be an exception for them to be able to do that, but waiving one benchmark assessment period.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, JB.
Yes, Mr. Buxton.
This is a process question, not a substance question. If we've got the data, is there a reason not just to issue a blanket waiver to the counties we know most affected, and then they can do this, and if they choose to go beyond this, they can, rather than, I can't imagine a situation where one of these counties asks for a waiver and we don't grant it.
Oh, yeah, this is actually, yeah, there's, correct. It's actually a way for us to keep track of who's doing what. So no, it's not going to be it's just a process. It's not, so we are able to make sure what schools are doing what. Because in some districts, we do have a couple schools open, and not all schools. So, I mean, we're not looking at it as like we're not going to give a waiver to a school. But we just want to make sure that we are able to know which schools did get the waiver and which ones didn't. Which ones, which ones need the waiver, and then that way we know from the tech point, we have to work with our M-Class Amplify on the technology piece and which ones, how all that looks. So, would you want just a blanket waiver or?
Well, I think Mr. Chairman, that's up to them, kind of from a process standpoint. I was just noting that I can't imagine we would ask for people to submit a request rather than just providing them. But if there's a technology need, that certainly makes sense.
Yeah, it helps us on this end kind of just know where everybody's at. But it would just be literally, to me, it's just send me an email and say we would like to do BOY to EOY, and it's going to be done. It's not going to be I don't want it to be a complicated bureaucratic, all these levels. It's just basically let us know you need a BOY. You just want to do BOY to EOY. If that helps kind of explain, and only because we do have some districts where schools are still closed, but they have some schools open, so it wouldn't be a district-wide waiver. It'd be, it'd be wherever they are and what their needs actually are.
I see. Dr. Hsu, it sounds like you would prefer an affirmative word from the districts about which schools or which districts in total need the waiver.
It would help us. It helps us also provide the materials, because a lot of these schools we're working with too on knowing what materials and trainings and other supports they need. So it kind of helps with that communication of what their needs are. I don't want it to be a burden to them. That's not the intent. It's really to say, okay, these are the schools that are going to start at BOY, and what are the supports they're going to need to do to move forward with that. And then also for us to be able to, at the state level, be able to actually look at, when we look at the data at the end of the year, know exactly which schools really did start where. And from the technical point, then we have to let Amplify know as well. Which is our vendor who does our M-Class online, and all the data entries and stuff for us.
Any other clarifying questions?
Yes, sir. Let me tell you this. I just very quickly, I really like this, and I like the way it's laid out. I also like, Pam, that you don't want to do that bureaucratic process, make it simple for them in the middle of everything else they've got going. I think as we think forward, I haven't thought this through myself, but I think having some type of natural disaster protocol that allows us to have some guidance on this would allow them to kind of know in advance what they can do if it's a declared disaster in their LEA, and they have these kind of things. The guidance is there pretty clearly, because you will have, for example, you have some in the mountains that in the past have missed 20 of 25 days because of 3 consecutive snowstorms. And I don't know whether that applies, but I think in some cases, they will think that applies relative to assessments and retention, and even the calendar law applies to this. So I think in the larger sense, some conversation around that as far as some type of protocol or guidance, not in this case, but for the future, because I do think that we are setting precedent, which I like, but I think the precedent will also be some more asks in many ways. Because I think we're just going to have more and more of these storms, and so we might as well get ready for it.
I completely agree with you, 200% of that. So that's definitely something that I've put on the agenda. I've even talked to the other deputy superintendents about, like, this would be something that we have kind of laid out, like an emergency plan, or however we want to word it, but like how we support and what schools need to know their options, so they're not as stressed as they have been about things that we're more. I can tell you from my team's perspective, we just want the teachers and the schools and the children and the families all to be safe, and we want them in a place that they can feel safe, get food, and then start learning. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, and I think that's something that we look forward to developing and working on further. Because, completely agree. Thank you for that comment.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, is there a motion to approve the recommendation that the State Board of Education waive its falls to requirements for KNEC-002 as presented for areas impacted by Hurricane Florence?
So moved. This is Jill.
Motion by Ms. Cammett. Is there a second?
Chastain, second.
Second by Mr. Chastain. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote?
Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Chastain,
Yes.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Buxton.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you,
so
board.
much, everyone.
Thank you, board members, for this. And Dr. Shute, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We welcome any opportunity like this to provide relief and support to districts and charter schools affected by Florence and now Michael. So please bring these items to our attention. We would be glad to support you in that effort.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all your support for this. Thank you.
Great, you bet. So thanks to board members for joining on this emergency conference call. Since our business is concluded, I'll now ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move. JB.
Motion by Mr. Buxton. Is there a second?
Second, McDevitt.
Second, White.
Second by Mr. McDevitt. Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll?
Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Chastain,
Yes.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Buxton.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you again, board members and others who participated in this emergency conference call. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Amy White.